Hi, I'm Stephen Feinberg, Executive Director of the Rhode Island Film and Television Office. Our guest tonight is a wonderful friend, and she's an extraordinary supporter of the arts. She's part of the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, and she is the founder of the Anthony Quinn Foundation. I am happy to welcome Kathy Quinn to the table here at Double Feature.
It's great to be here, Stephen.
Thank you for coming. Yes. So, your husband, Anthony Tony Quinn, great actor. He was in, I don't know how many films, so many
180
films.
almost.
180 films, including some of my favorites, Lawrence of Arabia, Guns of Navarone, which might be one of my all-time adventure favorites.
You and a lot of other people.
Yep. Lust for Life, Viva Zapata, Zorba the Greek. Phenomenal actor. Yeah. And he's done all kinds. He played Arabs, he played Greeks, he played
Italians,
Indians. And he was from Mexico.
Yes.
He was from Mexico. Grew up in Chihuahua, Mexico.
No, he grew up in Los Angeles.
Okay, but he was born in Chihuahua, Mexico. Came to East Los Angeles, where he grew up.
Yeah, they migrated. They were fruit pickers. That's how they got there from. You know, they crossed over. They lived in a refugee camp. They picked fruit. They made a living with a lot of other Mexican. Then the borders were open. You didn't have to. You know, you didn't have to climb any walls.
Right. You
just crossed.
Yeah.
And people lived in camps. And then later on, they started to get nervous because they wanted to get rid of the Mexicans. So he was part of that. I mean, he was living in L.A. and they were deciding to repatriate a lot of the Mexicans because it was, during the Depression.
He somehow got involved with art and architecture because we ultimately find out he's this real Renaissance man, this creative genius who did all kinds of art. But he was doing, I know he was part of an architectural, it was some competition that he won.
It was a drawing contest, and he won. And he really, he wanted to, he was so driven. Even when he was a kid, he just wanted to be someone. He remembers, walking the streets and just saying, well, I'm going to get out of this someday, and really having that drive. But that was a contest, and he won an internship with Frank Lloyd Wright because he wanted desperately to be an architect, and Frank Lloyd Wright was the greatest. And so he went there, and he was dismayed to find out that Wright had advice for him that he wasn't expecting. He said, "What's wrong with your speech?" He mumbled, he didn't know how to speak, and he told him he had a problem with his speech, and if he wanted to become an architect, that he had to learn how to speak properly. So he sent him to a doctor who gave him an operation, and then he went to an acting school to learn how to speak, and he caught the acting bug.
Yeah.
And it was that audience response, the first time he ever got a laugh, and it was by accident. He had a zipper down or something. It wasn't something he did intentionally,
right.
But just the reaction of the audience fed him, fed his creative spirit, and it was like a light bulb turned on.
And he was so charismatic too, right?
He was.
And
you watch anything with him close up, his eyes said so much, his hands said so much. He didn't have to move. He walked into a room and people just knew he was there. It was pretty.
He had a presence.
Oh, and I have a story. We lived in Bristol, and
right.
People now will tell me, "I met your husband when you guys lived here, and you came to my studio. He came to my studio with the children." And I said, "I remember, I was there." And they said, "No, you weren't there." And I said, "Yes, I was. I remember." And they say, "No, you weren't there." So that's how much of a presence. You have to be ready to just fade into the background.
That's funny. And I thought it was very interesting too. He played all of these different types of characters. I read somewhere that he said, I played Arabs, and I played Greeks, and I've played Italians, and I've been to Spain, and I want to be a man of the world. I was trying to find my place, and but I want to be a man of the world.
I think that was because he left his home country so young, and he struggled to find where he belonged because he really didn't feel like he belonged in any. And also, he started off life very poor,
right.
And as he got older, he made money and fame as an actor, an artist, and I guess aren't we all always trying to figure out where we belong? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I do. I always try to see where I fit in, but him more than anything, because he was discriminated against in Hollywood when he first started off.
He was different.
He was given the the thug Indian cowboy, you know, he was
Right.
always the bad guy
Yeah.
starting off and never given the leads. So then when he finally did get his leads, he was working in Europe with, you know, with actors who were working over there. Fellini. That's when he got his first lead in La Strada.
Strata, yeah. I just want to say before we leave too is that you are the founder of the Anthony Quinn Foundation, which is aqfoundation.org. So for those who are interested, aqfoundation.org, you help students.
High school students.
High school students.
So they go to summer intensive programs. So they apply to us from all over the country, all over the world. Actually, last year we had a winner from Russia, from Moscow. Young French horn player, so talented. He was in 12th grade. He looked like he was about 13 years old, the cutest kid. He came here to Tanglewood to do a summer intensive. So these summer intensives, you know, they get away from their, you know, when you're in high school, you're with a bunch of kids who have really nothing in common except you live in the same area, right? You
Right.
don't, you know, they don't all follow your passion. And sometimes the artists are the ones, the outliers. They don't fit in with their peers, and they go to these summer intensives and they spend 3-6 weeks with people who love to do what they love to do.
Like-minded people.
And it's transformative. It's just you know, life-changing for a
And
lot
it's
of
really
them.
about, like, it's culture, it's part of society, socialization, you know, intelligentsia, everything that's important.
It's more than, sometimes people always think of the arts and they say, oh, the arts, so
Right.
the arts. The arts are every day.
Right.
The arts are music you surround yourself with, flowers you put out on your table, you know, to make your house brighter, to make your day happier. You know, and that's what I learned from Tony. He was so poor when he was growing up. His family was so poor. They lived in the slums in East Los Angeles. But he said everybody took care of their house. They took care of their yard. They cleaned up, you know, even with whatever little they had, and that's kind of infectious. And it can make your day or break your day. If you see trash around, it's depressing, or you're driving around in potholes.
And it's pride.
How angry does it make you when you know,
Right.
I mean, that's art, fixing that. Sometimes they can just patch it up, or they can do a nice job.
Because they care.
And it makes you happy because they care. Thank
Right.
you.
And it's pride. And then when one person does it and another person does it, and it has an impact on a whole community.
Yeah, so that's how it affects everybody in all walks of life. And you don't have to be, you know, a great painter who's going to hang your paintings in a museum. You just have to have respect, you care, you know, you admire, and also you don't have to wait. Some of the kids we do, besides giving the scholarships,
Yeah.
I do school programs, and I'll have groups of kids at my house, and they see, you know, art that they've never seen. And one student said, when I get rich, I'm going to collect art. And I said, why wait? You know,
Right.
Start collecting things you love now, and surrounding yourself with beautiful stuff. You don't have to wait till
Did
you
Tony
get...
collect other art, or is
Oh,
it just
so much African, Indian, and that's what gave him inspiration to work, because he didn't have any training as an artist. And if you've seen his work,
Yes.
you've seen his paintings, his sculptures, and like you said, it was fun walking the beach with him, because it wasn't like we just went out and we went for a walk and we came back. It was an exploration, it was an adventure, and he'd
Right.
pick up these rocks and say, I'm going to make a sculpture out of this.
Didn't he have some rock that was, isn't that special rock that he had flown to Bristol from
That he uses as headstone now? It's
Yes.
10 feet tall.
10 feet
Yeah.
tall? Where is that from?
That's from, well, we found it in Rome, but it's a piece of coral, sea coral from some ancient sea somewhere that was.
And whenever
was
I
just
go to
in
your,
a
I have
garden
to
center.
touch that. I have to put my hand on it.
It's pretty
There's
stunning.
something,
He saw it, he fell in love with it, he made them ship it back to Rhode Island, and I eventually just used it in his memorial garden.
there's something, I don't know what it is. I'm getting goosebumps. It's something very spiritual. See, I'm getting goosebumps when I see it and think about it and I put my hand on it. I don't know what that is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have also fundraisers at it's the aqfoundation.org,
Right.
And what happens at these fundraisers?
We raise money so that we could provide the scholarships. I mean, we don't have an endowment. We're working on growing up. We're a really young organization. He didn't start this. I started it. Really got it going about 8 years ago, and to date we've given 80 scholarships to
80
kids.
scholarships, wow.
We've had over 1,500 kids apply, and so if we had enough funding, we want to keep increasing that. We do about 10 to 15 a year.
Yeah.
But the schools are expensive, so they are, $8,000. So we give them about $2,500 each.
And it's all types of art:
music, dance, media, filmmaking, literary, and the writers are the hardest to find because they're so introverted. They're not the type of people who are very, the theater people come out in droves. Musicians too, they're highly trained, but the writers, the painters sometimes are a little bit harder to get,
They're more introverted.
to get to apply. But we find also, and they've told us, this isn't just from us, that the application process itself is a learning, is a real opportunity for self-discovery, because we ask them questions. What drives you? Why do you want to do this? Where
so
do
it's
you want
not
to
just
go?
for Rhode Islanders, it's national and international.
Oh, yeah.
And it's aqfoundation.org
Yes.
for those who are students that are interested in the arts.
High school students, passionate about what they do, driven, dedicated, and they have a place they want to go.
And I want to make sure that people go to your website, and if they can help out, that is wonderful.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, you're great.